Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. So in this video, once again, I have a game from the candidates tournament, and once again, like yesterday, it is a game that includes Vladimir Kramnik, the former world champion. And this time, again, it is a Russian duel. So yesterday I showed you a game between Grischuk and Kramnik, and today it is Karjakin against Kramnik. So again, Kramnik is with black pieces, and he is really exhausted after that 91 move game, and he is trying to do something also in this game. So let me just show you what happened. We have c4 and e6. Like Grischuk yesterday, Karjakin also decided to play c4 first move to see what will the big Vlad do. We have knight to c3, d5 and d4, knight to f6. So the same as yesterday, Kramnik decided to go for the standard setup for the Queen's Gambit declined and try his luck here. But Karjakin changes up a little bit, c takes on d5 and knight takes on d5. So something that we already seen, e4, knight c3 and bc3, and now c5. The thing is, you would like to counter the center, and yeah, white has e4 and d4 pawn, and with c5 you're kind of attacking it, and you don't want to give white that much space in the center. Now we have rook to b1, a normal move, and bishop to e7, knight to f3 and castle. So all development moves, all normal moves for this opening, and now the moment where it all started, h4. So Karjakin is kind of, I guess he is tired of listening to people say stuff like "show me the million" and "what are you doing in this tournament? Come on, play a normal game." Because most of his games, so also I haven't been that fair to him, I guess, because I wasn't really satisfied with his game and display of power. After all, he was a challenger to Magnus Carlsen a year ago, and now he is playing drawish openings and middle games, finishing the games really fast, and yeah, just either being in a worse position than losing. Yeah, I wasn't really happy with his game, and now he plays a move such as h4, and you know that this will be an exciting game. This put, of course, Kramnik into a bit of a thing, because h4 isn't a move that you would expect in a situation like this, but after this game, I guess a lot of people will analyze it. We have c takes on d4 and c takes on d4, and now we can see that the queen side is wide open. On the king side you played h4, and the king is still in the center. So Karjakin has to be really careful of what he does in a moment such as this. Knight to c6, and in this moment you would expect a move that develops a piece, but a former challenger to the world champion plays h5. So a move that you would probably see more in a bullet or a blitz game. Here Karjakin makes a major push with the h-pawn and goes for the attack on the king side right away. And now a move that probably Kramnik would regret later is f5. I mean, it isn't a move that you would expect at this point. It kind of counters the center and does what needs to be done. You would like to open up the center, because the king is in the center and he is attacking on the back. But the manner in which you are attacking isn't that good, because here Karjakin takes on f5, and if the pawn takes, you have this nice bishop to c4 idea. King will have to go on h8, and you have very quick development by white. While on the other hand, this bishop will look kind of weak. So isn't the best of ideas. Also, rook to f5 is followed by bishop to d3. So all in all, not such good options. We have queen to a5, so probably Kramnik was going for something like this. Bishop d2 and queen to f5, putting the rook and the queen on the f-file, so that this knight is pinned here. And yeah, maybe for ideas such as this. But the thing is, there is still problem of this bishop. The bishop cannot move to d7, the b pawn is attacked. If you move this pawn, this knight is kind of looking weak, and this bishop can try and attack it. So it's really not all that good for black. We have bishop to c3, preparing bishop to d3, and now we have h6. So I guess a move that will kind of keep a breathing space for black, because at this point there aren't that good moves for black. Maybe e5 right away, giving up the pawn so that bishop can come to e6, but once again white can play bishop to c4 with the tempo, and he is still in a better position. We have bishop to d3 here and queen to g4. Now Karjakin plays the best move, which is king to f1. So he keeps an eye on this pawn. It doesn't imagine going into kingside castle because, as I said, he pushed h5. So if he would go, then queen to h5 just loses a pawn. And now e5 and bishop to g4 come right away. So you wouldn't want to do something like that. King to f1 is a much better move. So not having any threats and also keeping an eye on the g pawn. We have e5 now, so finally Kramnik decided to open up the position because he doesn't know what to do with his bishop. And now, of course, the best move in the position played by Karjakin, which is d5. Other move could have been this, but this allows bishop to e6, which gives counterplay to black. So d5 a better move because now this knight is attacked, and also if the knight moves, then knight to e5 will come. Also, if knight to d4, knight to e5 is the best move because queen takes d1, rook takes d1, the queen was attacked, also with the knight and the queen, and now this knight is attacked, so not the best of situations for black. It kind of looks strange when black was given two tempos essentially with playing h4 and h5, and with a move such as f5 you ruin your position. Now we have e4, so to counter d5 probably that was the whole idea, but d takes on c6 and e takes on f3. We have g takes on f3, which is with tempo, attacking the queen, and now you have to make a decision. You can take with the queen or with the rook. If you take with the queen, you have queen takes on f3 and rook takes on f3, and now there is king to e2, attacking the rook essentially. You don't want to move your rook necessarily, for example, to f8 or something like that, because you have, first rook to g1, attacking this pawn. A bishop, for example, comes to f6 to defend, or even bishop to g5, and now you have c takes on b7, attacking the bishop and the rook, and black is clearly losing this game. So instead of that, the best move is actually to capture on d3 with the rook, because after king to d3 you have this bishop to f5 check, king to e2, and now you're attacking this rook. But once again, it is not the best move to capture the rook, because you have this intermediate capture of the pawn, and after rook to b8 or bishop to e4, it doesn't really matter. Black is in a losing position here, because either bishop to d4 or bishop to e5 is the next move in order to just get rid of this rook or promote to a queen. So all in all, a bad position here. Instead of after king to e2, instead of taking, you would have to take like this and try to play with the bishop pair. But as we saw yesterday, Kramnik didn't had much luck with playing with the bishop pair, so probably he wasn't going for a variation such as this. Instead of all of that, Kramnik decided to take with the rook, which is the worst move, but still keeps the queens on the board and keeps more chances. Now actually the best move was to capture on b7, or play queen to b3 and then capture on b7 in order to win something. But rather than thinking about it, rather quickly Karjakin here plays bishop to e2, which gives some chances to black, because you have this rook takes on f2, sacrificing the rook and bringing the king to wide open area, and essentially trying to give him some checks and create some threats. We have bishop to c5 and king to f1 back, queen to f4, and now you don't want to play king to e1, because then you would go into some kind of a perpetual. With these kinds of moves there aren't any good checks, so discovery checks. So after queen to f4 we have bishop to f3, and now b takes on c6, so getting rid of this threat, capturing on b7, and now Karjakin plays the absolute best move, which is bishop to e1. So maybe to an amateur player or a player who doesn't play chess, this seems like a move hard to find, but Karjakin saw right away that this bishop needs to be on this side of the board, because the king will go on g2, and then covering bishop to g3 or playing bishop to h4, covering these two squares, would be the best situation for this bishop in order to have it as a defending piece. We have bishop to e6 defending the bishop, developing the bishop, and now bishop to h4. As I said, guarding these two squares, king can now come to g2, especially after rook to f8, because now you have this double attack on the bishop. King to g2, and now king to h8 actually. So not really sure what is the idea here. Maybe if if this bishop moves from this diagonal, that there could be some threats on this diagonal, but yeah, not really sure if that's the best course of action. So rook to f5 was a possibility here, the move that actually makes some threats, because if you play moves such as a4, so something that doesn't actually make sense, you have this rook to d5. So if bishop takes on d5, you have bishop takes on d5 with check, and now this king has problems, because to h3 is the only square, and you have queen to f5, the queen has to cover, and bishop to g2. Now king has to take and queen to g4, and black is winning this game, because now, yeah, there aren't many squares that king can go to, and with some checks, black can actually win material. So this is something that can happen, and if you don't take, if you play, for example, queen to e2, move the queen somewhere, rook to d2 comes, whatever happens, and yeah, once again the queen is lost, and yeah, you're losing this game. So you don't want to allow such a maneuver as rook to f5, rook to d5, but okay, we had king to h8, and now rook to c1, attacking this bishop, but now we have rook to f5 defending, and rook to c3. Now rook to d5 was played, but now it doesn't work anymore, because bishop to d5, and now we have rook to f3 blocking. You don't want to exchange, of course, because white is a rook up. Essentially, we have queen to g4, bishop to g3, so all is forced. Bishop to d6 attacking once again. Threat is to take, so we have rook to h3, and now bishop to e7. So all of these moves are forced, and Kramnik is making them under serious time trouble, because he had to think a lot about his moves, and he is under a minute, I think, at this point, and he is just trying to reach time control. We have queen to e2 attacking the bishop, bishop to e4 blocking the queen, and now queen to f2 attacking this pawn and also guarding this bishop. So if this bishop moves, for example, if king moves, yeah, it is difficult to say what would be the best course of action, but the main plan for white here is to actually activate one of the pieces, because he has a rook and exchange up, and with that piece actually go and win the game. We have a5 nevertheless, and a4. c5, and Kramnik at this point is just making moves. One thing is that this rook is free to go wherever he pleases now, because the queen and the rook and the bishop are enough to actually guard the king. We have rook to h1, bishop to f6, because you don't want to have two bishops on the e file. We have rook to e1, and now bishop to c6, moving the bishop out of the way. Now we have rook to e3, the other rook to e3, yeah, not this one. And now since this rook is defending this rook, and the rook is attacking this bishop, now the queen is free to move wherever she pleases. We have first c4, continuing the push, but now queen to e2 essentially stops all threats, queen to h5, and queen takes at c4. Now Karjakin reaches time control, the bishop is attacked, so bishop to d7, Kramnik also reaches time control, and after rook to d3, as we can see, as we said, Karjakin is a rook and the exchange up. He can also, in some variations, sacrifice one of the rooks for the bishop, and yeah, essentially go and win the game. After some thinking, after he reached time control and got extra time, Kramnik decided to, yeah, resign the game at this point. And yeah, this is pretty much it for this game. As I've said, I gave Karjakin pretty much a hard time about his play in this tournament, but with this move h4 and h5, he showed us that he can play an exciting game, and he is not all over. Even though after this win he is 4.5 out of 9, so at 50%, but still there is enough time. This is round 8, this is round 9, so there is enough time to actually come and get closer to the winners, so the leaders of the tournament. On the other hand, Kramnik and Wesley So kind of, yeah, are down at the bottom of the board, of the standings board, and I guess the tournament is over for them because they cannot win first place. I guess a miracle needs to happen to actually for Kramnik, who had such an amazing start, especially with that win against Aronian, to end up being in such a situation after all these games. But nevertheless, yeah, I guess he was exhausted after yesterday's 91 move game, and yeah, he didn't manage to, yeah, just go. He was under tremendous pressure and he lost another game. So yeah, without me talking too much about it, this is pretty much it for this video. And yeah, I would like to thank you for watching it, and I will see you next time.